How did you start the issue? I wish to do neither because these serious issues have affected my friends and family. Story 1. It is surprisingly difficult to keep promises you make to yourself, but it is very easy to make them when those promises have never been seriously tested. Story 2. I graduated drug abuse resistance education, even won the trivia contest. I still ended up a drug addict. I have been clean for 20 years as of this past December. Stick to your principles, kid. Story 3. I swore them off in high school, then realized in college that the reason I swore them off in high school was because no one around me did them responsibly. Moderation is key in almost everything. Story 4. Well, I'm in my 60s and I did everything. I quit smoking after 35 years. I still drink, but haven't been drunk in decades. I recall my mid-teen years when I had no desire to do any of it. In fact, I distinctly remember my football coach holding me up to the team as someone who would never smoke. What happened? Peer pressure mostly. I left sports and that created a void that other things and vices filled. Story 5. I first knew what a cigarette was when I was 11, tried it and said to myself I would never smoke. I started smoking 3 years ago, just before my son was born. I am trying to quit now, already in the 3rd week. This is my second real attempt. The first one lasted for 2 months and I relapsed. Alcohol. I used to drink occasionally but never felt the need for it. I have not gotten intoxicated in about 5 years and do not plan to in the future. Drugs? Never. I am 31 years old and started smoking around age 29. I began smoking due to a lot of stress from being a new father and work issues. It has gotten better last year. Story 6. You are always free to change your mind. The 16-year-old version of you does not have binding authority over future versions of yourself. Story 7. I am 30 this month and have never used drugs, drank alcohol, or smoked. It is really not that hard. I decided to do it for no reason other than I wanted to, and it has done nothing but make my life easier, to be honest. Story 8. It was a pretty easy thing to say when I was 16 and never around alcohol. Now that I am around it more often, it is hard to just say, I am not going to drink. But drinking in moderation is not very hard, at least in my case. Story 9. It is all about common sense and moderation. I have a couple of drinks here and there. I might smoke a couple of cigars in a year. I have tried cannabis. None of it ruined my life or my health because I did not make it a habit or do it to an extreme. If you do not want to do those things, you certainly do not have to. Story 10. The day I met him, my freshman year roommate said, I don't pollute my body with drugs and alcohol. By the end of freshman year, he was a total marijuana user. He moved on to harder substances, had a bit of a breakdown, but seems to be doing well now. That said, if you have family experience, you are wise to stay away. Sometimes all it takes is one drink. Story 11. Haha, that was me, now 32. As a teenager, I didn't drink or do any drugs at all. I was strongly against it and didn't mind that my friends did. I didn't have my first drink until I was 19 and my first edible until I was 24. I relaxed my ideals. There is nothing wrong with change. It is also fine if you want to stay completely sober, but don't make it a superiority complex. Nobody likes that. Story 12. I thought I would not. I did drugs in college. That being said, I only bought from dealers I knew. I was too scared to buy from random people and I did not trust dealers. I never smoked cigarettes. Now I just take performance-enhancing drugs. Story 13. People generally start because they want to fit in with their friends who are drinking or using drugs. Just be true to yourself and maintain your position. Friends may try to pressure you. Often, this is only because they think it is fun and want to have fun with you. True friends will understand when you stand your ground on the issue. Some friends may get caught up in partying, which can create distance in the friendship. This is completely normal. I promise you will never have regrets about choosing not to partake in drugs and alcohol. Story 14. I'm in my early 40s and kept the promise. It is easy when you realize real friends would not pressure you to do something you do not want to. Story 15. I am 45 years old. I do not drink alcohol, smoke, or use drugs. There is a clear sense of clarity in life when you are not afraid to face challenges directly, and things do not seem so bad that you feel the need to escape them. It also allows you to pursue life goals when you are not living for your next fix. I highly recommend avoiding alcohol, smoking, and drug use. You save a significant amount of money as well. Story 16. I thought the same way but eventually tried them out. I never got addicted and always kept it at the bare minimum. I have not had any for a few years now. Story 17. I do not drink, smoke, or use drugs. As a teenager, I hated how irrational and strange my mother became when she was drinking, and it put me off for life. I also disliked the taste of alcohol, so it was easy to never drink. I am 36 now and do not feel any temptation at all. It is just not part of my life. Story 18. Hey, just some encouragement. While I'm far from perfect, I had a friend in high school who was told the same thing around that age. His dad was a party guy growing up and got himself in trouble a lot then. My friend ended up staying completely true to his values. He married a beautiful woman, has a great job, and a great life. If it's what you want, you can do it. Story 19. I never said it. Given my time again, I would not have started smoking, but I have enjoyed drinking and using drugs in moderation. Story 20. You lack the experience to make lifelong promises to yourself that you intend to keep. Do what you feel is right for now, but do not burden yourself with what you think 50-year-old you will value. Story 21. I tried cigarettes and didn't like them, so I never continued smoking. I tried marijuana for a summer in high school until I realized I was broke and decided I enjoyed having money. The ability to just go buy what I wanted was much better than the temporary high from marijuana, so I moved on and never looked back. I have unusual taste buds, so I never really developed a liking for drinking. In fact, I have only been actually drunk fewer than 10 times. The last drink I had was a little bit of soju around New Year's, which is still sitting in my fridge untouched. You are 16 and things may change. But if you don't want to, then if someone tries to insult you over it, just tell them to leave you alone. You don't live your life to please them or their sensibilities. Story 22. The people who preach against drugs are often on Xanax or other psychoactive prescription drugs and painkillers. I wouldn't tell you to do drugs or not. Figure it out. What I will say is that it is totally foolish that plants which grow naturally are illegal to consume. It is up to the individual to decide for themselves what they want to put in their bodies and why. Every now and then, I like to have a nice, strong cigar with some friends. Nothing feels better than an ice-cold beer after a long, hot day. Music and lights are so much more enjoyable on ecstasy and lysergic acid diethylamide. Nothing against people who want to live their lives in the standard definition, but myself. Every now and then, I like seeing the world in ultra-high definition. I was raised on the drug abuse resistance education program and all of that. I did not do anything until I was in my early to mid-20s. If I could go back and never try anything, would I be better for it? It is impossible to say. I will tell you one thing though. People regret the things they did not do more than the things they did do. Be smart. Whatever you do, make sure you do it in moderation. Do not let anyone talk you into doing something you do not want to do, but also do not make judgments against people or substances unless you know what you are talking about. Story 23. I did not keep the promise. However, I want to let you know that you are not missing out on anything. There is no need to start. If you experience peer pressure, just decline politely. If that does not work, find new peers. Story 24. I did not actively want to try or avoid smoking, drinking, or drugs, but I tried all of them over time and have no regrets trying them. I also did not develop any habits. Story 25. When I was your age, I figured I would try cannabis in college. Psychedelics always seemed interesting to me, but I never really sought them out. I knew I would drink since it was college. Now I am 29, I smoke daily, and I do psychedelics every now and then. Not as much in recent years, but that's because my life got in the way. I drink occasionally, like at soccer games, on holidays, and when I'm hanging out with a group of people. But I rarely drink alone. I have always had the mindset that drugs and alcohol can be fun, but I should always handle my responsibilities first. Drugs and alcohol should never become a priority in my life, only a luxury. If I reach a point where I cancel plans just to smoke or use psychedelics, I will catch myself. Or it will indicate there is an underlying mental health issue I am ignoring. It really comes down to knowing how you react to different substances. If you are someone who can't stop after one beer, that is, you feel the need to keep drinking, then it may be a problem. That's not to say you can't get drunk, but if you set a limit for yourself of, I will only have 2 beers and still end up blacking out, then it is a problem. Cannabis is nice and very relaxing, but it shouldn't be used to escape emotions. It should be used to enhance positive emotions. Psychedelics are powerful. You will know if you need to stop using them. They amplify all emotions, both positive and negative. So if you are happy, you will feel extremely happy, but if you are depressed, you will feel very depressed. Drugs and alcohol carry stigma, both positive and negative. Statements like, smoking cannabis will turn you into a criminal, are as misinformed as claims that cannabis is harmless and does not affect you mentally, or that everyone needs psychedelics to fix the world versus psychedelics cause schizophrenia. Psychedelics do not cause schizophrenia unless it is already present in your family history. Don't let others dictate whether you try these substances. If there is a time to try them, it is college. If you try something and don't like it, that is fine. If you do like it, just be mindful of how much you use. Happy to answer any other questions you have. Story 26. I have seen people say that at a young age, stick to it through high school, then one day they experiment and fall harder than any of us who partied at a younger age. People who have those views also tend to see themselves as better or above people who do the above-mentioned things. Story 27. I said as a kid, never ever. I rarely drink. Mostly when out to dinner, I have a beer, maybe 2. My dad was and is a pretty hardcore alcoholic, so alcohol is something I avoid. Cannabis, I am a pretty frequent user of. It got me off anxiety medication, so I cannot really complain. A gummy every few days keeps the panic attacks away. Story 28. Depends on whether you accept this answer or not. When I was young, I said I never wanted to do drugs. I do not smoke and never did, but I do drink on occasion, generally during special events in life. The only thing I use sometimes is a tetrahydrocannabinol and cannabidiol product to help with sleep. Otherwise, I am about as straight edge as one can be. Story 29. I'm sure all kids at some point will not want to smoke, drink, or take drugs. However, trauma, lack of a support system, and a certain genetic predisposition contribute to this issue. Story 30. Smoking is harmful and completely avoidable. Among all harmful habits, smoking is the most detrimental. Story 31. I have consumed alcohol and used cannabis, but coffee is the only substance I have ever been dependent on. Other than that, I have mostly stopped using drugs, including alcohol. Story 32. Have some good hobbies and interests. They will help you keep your goals of maintaining a clean, drug-free life. Story 33. I absolutely said I was never going to drink alcohol or use drugs before I drank alcohol and used drugs. Who needs substances to have fun and be outgoing? Just choose to be more outgoing and make your own fun. Such a sweet summer child I was. Then I tried alcohol and said, wait, forget that. This stuff is very fun. Story 34. I had a single drink on my 21st birthday and a glass of wine at my sister's wedding. It is probably overkill, but I have enough mental health issues that I do not need drugs and alcohol in the mix. Story 35. I was raised in a family of alcoholics and addicts. When I was a kid, I swore I would never drink or use drugs. I had seen the worst they could offer. For a long time, I would not date anyone who drank or used drugs. Over time, I relaxed that and do not mind my partner drinking socially or to unwind. I have never dated anyone who wanted to use drugs, so that was never really tested. I am well into my 40s now. I have never drank or used drugs. I have no interest in either. My wife respects my choices, though they confuse her. I get invited to parties and bars with friends and am happy to always be the designated driver. I have no issues being with friends who are intoxicated. I do not mind buying beer or wine for my wife to drink. I do not care that my kids have tried drinking. Once people get to know me, it stops being strange to them that I do not drink when we are out. I plan to live clean. It is okay to have boundaries you live with and are happy keeping. Story 36. At 22, I started working at a call center with only 15-minute breaks. My options were to take the break in the break room, listening to the roar of hundreds of other calls at the same time and under the cold, bright, artificial light, or right outside the building with not enough time to go elsewhere. I wasn't smoking, but everyone else in front of the building was. I got addicted to secondhand smoke. 2 years later, I started a relationship with one of those smokers. The addiction to the cigar smoke got so bad that I needed them nearby just to breathe it in, so I eventually started smoking. I hated cigarettes, so I switched to hookah. I started needing it while out, so I picked up vaping. I've quit at least 8 times, but I keep relapsing. This last time I stopped unintentionally, so let's see how it goes. It's been like a month. I didn't drink until I was 24 and then became a full-on alcoholic. I couldn't leave my house in the morning if I hadn't drunk enough for a buzz, but to be honest, by your age, I was already starting to question if I would reverse that decision of not drinking, so it was a few years until I did. I am no longer an alcoholic, and although withdrawal was difficult, I managed to stop in such a way that now I can go months straight without a drink, but I can also have 1 to 4 occasional drinks without relapsing. Alcohol and nicotine are harder drugs than most people think, as evidenced by how we classify them differently, but tobacco and alcohol addictions are just as dangerous and very hard to quit. But I assume you mean other drugs. I've smoked weed, it never became a habit. I haven't even bought it myself. I just wait until a friend offers. I have taken Xanax, which led to me realizing I had anxiety for which I now get prescriptions. I also tried Adderall and Ritalin and realized I have ADHD. When I was assessed for anxiety, I also got prescriptions for depression, and we tried many combinations. The only medications that made me stop actively wanting to die interacted with ADHD meds, and the side effects landed me at the emergency room. I think that scared me off those for life. I like poppers. I've seriously considered cocaine, mushrooms, and LSD, but have not tried them yet. I have been offered all of those drugs multiple times for free, as in a friend giving them without expecting me to pay back. And every time I managed to say no without a problem. Saying no was never the issue. Everything I tried when I consciously chose to do so, and there was no peer pressure affecting me. In fact, when I felt peer pressure, I was even firmer with my no, and everyone respected that. It was my choice. The only exception was nicotine. Even while smoking, I absolutely hated the smell of cigarettes. That was rarely offered to me. Maybe once in my whole life, and I said no. Despite hating it, no one pressuring me, and seeing my partner spending obscene amounts on it, I still got addicted to it. Even today, if I walk by someone smoking my ex's brand, I get nauseous, but I also get an extremely strong craving. That addiction started just from spending 15 minutes at work surrounded by smokers. That one I did not actively choose. Story 37. I promise you, kid, it is not worth it. Maybe drinking a bit here and there during certain occasions when you get older or if you get invited to a party as an adult. Besides that, you literally are not missing anything if you choose to never do drugs. I know the drug abuse resistance education program sounds like nonsense, but in the end, I realized everything they said was true. It is hard to convince young people of these things because at your age, there are probably people who smoke marijuana, do drugs, or drink and seem to be fine, but it catches up to people more often than not. Everyone thinks the same thing before. Not me, nope, but it will catch up. Good on you. Story 38. I also promised myself that long ago. I am 22 now and doing the exact opposite of what I promised myself. Story 39. Yeah, this was me. Go through enough difficult experiences, feel bad enough, and you can find yourself in a position where you compromise on things you never thought you would. Some of it was immaturity on my part, thinking some of this anyway. Drinking, having a cigar with a friend, or even smoking a joint are all acceptable activities. Acceptable activities can spiral out of control if you have no self-discipline or a challenging mental state, such as mental health issues. My advice is to prioritize your mental health at all times and realize it can happen to you. Set boundaries where it makes sense for you, but do not be so rigid that you cannot reassess them without feeling guilt. Doing something or not doing something should ultimately serve you. There are times in your life when re-examining how you feel in the moment will arise, and that is fine. Story 40. At 25, I promised myself in God, when I was faithful, that I would never do any of that. I ended up drinking a lot and using marijuana during my college years, but now I only have a beer a couple of times a week. I have the occasional cigarette at work, about one every few days or a week. The important thing is to recognize how easily you get hooked on things. If you easily become addicted to something, it is better to never touch it even once. And yes, contrary to some beliefs, marijuana is addictive and can be destructive. Story 41. I hate to say the hardships in life have led me to these vices. I almost became an alcoholic myself, as my family has a history of it. Thankfully, I stopped myself. I am going through a divorce now, and it is harder than ever to avoid drinking heavily. Story 42. I never said it. I have largely never done those things except drink alcohol. Even then, I can count on one hand how many times I did so, and each time was a let's just see how it tastes kind of thing. It was disgusting both times, so I have not felt compelled to drink. Story 43. I've said I would never do it and did it anyway due to some heavy events that happened to me. Thankfully, I am not addicted to any kind of drugs, so it has been a while since I had my last beer. Story 44. Smoked cigarettes for 15 years, never got into drugs. Not really a drinker. Smoke a lot of cannabis though. Man, to feel normal. Lucky people are just born normal, walking around. Story 45. I am 28 years old. I tried a cigarette and realized that it helped my attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. So I was self-medicating with that for a while. I tried drinking later in life and realized that I liked the taste of some beer. All the people I know who drank a lot in high school and college hate alcohol now, but I can still enjoy it. Story 46. Never did drugs and never smoked. I always said my father, who died of every smoking-related illness you can think of, smoked enough for both of us. He would smoke heavily enough that in winters you could sometimes struggle to see the paintings on the walls. I also do not drink to excess, and I can probably count on fewer than a dozen times I have had a beer. Never had, nor want to have, anything harder than that. I am approaching 50. Once you get past some of the social resistance to these decisions, it is remarkably easy. Story 47. Never smoked, maybe the occasional drink on rare occasions. None of my friends smoke. At 16, I drank at the occasional house party, but never frequently. At university, drinking was part of the culture there, and generally in the United Kingdom. I drank too much and too often, with many nights out and clubbing. In all honesty, if I had not drunk then, I probably would not have those friends today, as it was where I bonded with them. I am 31 now and saw them 2 days ago. You cannot always control where you are, but if you find yourself with like-minded people, you will be fine. I do not drink very often now, only socially or on holidays. If none of my friends drank, I probably would not either. If you have an addictive personality, it is best to avoid drinking. For the vast majority, people can have self-restraint and do not need it, keeping drinking social and infrequent. For others, it becomes a need, and if your friends do it, it does not feel like you are in the wrong because it is the norm in your world. Story 48. Almost 40. I have never actually said it. I have never smoked or used any drugs, and I only rarely have a drink. I see many of my coworkers smoking, and I want to try it. However, considering my family health history, there are too many risks involved. It is best to just keep avoiding it. Story 49. I am 21 years old and have never smoked or used drugs. I had about 3 drinks when I was 18, but I disliked the taste of alcohol, so I avoided it completely. It is not difficult to avoid. Just do not give in to peer pressure. Story 50. I never had a sip of alcohol until I was legal at 21. I never smoked cannabis until the age of 25. This led to a short period during which I tried lysergic acid diethylamide, mushrooms, ketamine, and cocaine. I am now 32. I do not really recommend it, and it was a very brief period. However, I would also caution against labels or prejudice toward those who made such promises and broke them. From the outside, I appeared to be a super conventional, straight-edge kind of person. I had a professional job, and everything seemed pretty perfect. It was just a strange period for 3 years. Now, I have not even drunk alcohol in years. Story 51. I was one of those guys who never drank, never smoked, and had no interest in drugs. One day, while riding my bike in the woods near my house, I saw a few hippie guys on a log smoking weed out of a Gatorade bottle they had turned into a bong. They offered me a toke, and that was it. 2 years later, while in college, I met another guy and started to smoke with him, eventually becoming a stoner. I smoked for another 8 years, then quit because of career choices. Story 52. I always said I would never smoke, though I did pick it up a few years ago after having occasional cigars here and there. I smoke in moderation, though, about a pack a week. Story 53. I started drinking at 19 and finally quit at the beginning of the year. I have never used any other drugs, only liquor. Story 54. I do not know that I ever stated it, but I knew in high school that smoking and drugs were not for me. Unfortunately, I had already had my first beer by 8th grade. Anyway, I will be 38 this year and have never smoked or done drugs, so still hanging on. Story 55. I started by realizing how disconnected from society I was, being born into a dysfunctional family. I struggled with addiction even as a young child. From around 3 years old to now, I have been addicted to video games. That addiction made me miss opportunities to act courageously, meet people, and make friends. Eventually, that addiction transformed into sex and drug addiction. My therapist explained that addiction is a matter of perspective. If you smoke once, are you an addict? What if you smoke once a year? Once a month? Addiction is chasing a high when life itself is already the high that substances like cannabis give you. These drugs disrupt the balance in your brain, like a spinning wheel that is constantly tipping. You only start overcoming your addiction when you align it with your purpose in life. Addiction does not truly go away until you achieve the life you desire. Being sober helps you think clearly. Abuse is like throwing dirt into clean water or adding packets of powder to water. The more packets you add, the less it is pure water. Life constantly interprets data, and when you become desensitized, you want to replace that feeling. This is why sleep and lucid dreaming are important. If you are very awake while trying to sleep, it may mean you are addicted to something that amplifies negative aspects of your life. If you can avoid addiction by focusing on a purpose in life that motivates you to wake up each day, it helps. For example, if you imagine saving the lives of animals on another planet, every day will feel like holding onto a rope instead of falling through a cloud. However, with every good thing, there is something bad. Balance exists throughout the world and the universe. Unintended consequences, like monkey's paws, are real phenomena. Story 56. I made a pledge in middle school to avoid illicit drugs and tobacco and never had much desire to drink as an adolescent. I am now 36. I have smoked a quarter of a cigar but did not like it. I have tried smoking cannabis twice and had a few tetrahydrocannabinol gummies. I learned I prefer to breathe oxygen and that tetrahydrocannabinol causes significant stomach and bowel issues. I had a period of heavy drinking from age 20 to 23, but now I enjoy a single rum, bourbon, or cider with dinner. Most adults learn what they can responsibly enjoy. Some find that they can easily become addicted to or abusive of substances. Story 57. For me, I never had a desire. I tried drinking but did not care for it. I am not against smoking, drinking, or cannabis. It just never appealed to me. Story 58. Honestly, it is really easy not to start. I drank because it seemed like the cool thing to do. I never let it get past social drinking, and now I almost never drink. I despise the smell of cigarettes, so that one was easy. I have never really seen a reason to take drugs, so I just never did. Story 59. You will end up trying all three at least once in your life for various reasons. Then you will be able to say if you will never do them again. I am not saying that I want you to do them or anything. Go ahead and prove me wrong. I am just saying that most people your age say that, and then next year they are doing it. Story 60. I think I made a sign at school once that said, if I don't start smoking, I will go to Disneyland at the age of 18. But then it was legal for 16-year-olds to buy tobacco, so as soon as I turned 16, I bought my first pack of cigarettes. Now, about to turn 30, I do feel like I want to quit for several reasons. Story 61. I had some great times when I started drinking at 19. No regrets, but now at 29, I have learned to be more responsible and can have a couple of beers and call it a night. Story 62. Had the same goals, and until I was 24, I even rejected foods that were cooked using alcohol, mainly because my uncle drank himself to death, and some friends of my parents were alcoholics. I did not want to end up like that, but eventually I recognized that it is a bit silly. It does not have to be all or nothing. I still do not smoke or take any drugs. I am 45 now and drink alcohol, which is technically a drug, in moderation for taste. I have about 1 or 2 beers a week on average. I have zero interest in strong liquor. Story 63. Went to Catholic school and was a proper church boy. I never had any interest in drinking or smoking. I have grown to be a proud non-believer. Story 64. Never smoke or do drugs. Never wanted to. I have drunk alcohol, but I never said I wouldn't. That was never something I considered. Story 65. I swore never to touch cigarettes as a child, but by age 15 I was smoking because the girl I liked did. I eventually quit many years later. The cigarettes were gone, and the girl had long since left. As for alcohol or drugs, I have been open to them and have had my share, but it has always been a casual social activity. Story 66. I was very straight edge growing up, especially avoiding smoking because my mom and stepdad did at the time, and it always made me feel nauseous. I am 35 now, and the only thing I have done is drink, which I started at 21 because I was tired of being antisocial and missing out on social events. Story 67. I said that about sex and that did not happen. I am not a virgin and it was awesome. If you ever want to take a day off to try drugs or alcohol, do so on your own terms. Make sure you do some research, find someone who has been there and done it before, and go with the flow once it is underway. It will feel strange and be new. Go slow and then wait a bit. That applies to everything. See how it feels and then proceed. Story 68. Being 16, you are likely to be around others who use excessively. I was around users between 16 and 28 when I was part of that scene. I never cared for smoking except for the occasional clove cigarette or marijuana. I have had some benders with alcohol but never felt the need to drink every single day. I am 56 now and have a stocked liquor cabinet, but I may have a drink once or twice a week. Use your best judgment. Do not be pressured to consume, smoke, or intake anything. Believe it or not, your friends and acquaintances will respect your decision. Story 69. By 16, I was smoking cigarettes and drinking beer. I should have skipped the cigarettes and smoked marijuana instead. My mistake. Story 70. 35 and smoke, drug, and alcohol free. The important thing is to not judge others for doing these things as long as they are not endangering themselves or others. Be a designated driver for your friends instead of a narc or buzzkill. Speaking from experience, you will have a much more fruitful social life. Story 71. I never wanted to. I may drink once every few months, but even then, it is not for me. I never do drugs or smoke at all. My parents do not do any of that, and personally, I always found it strange when I saw friends' parents drinking and smoking with them. Story 72. I am one of them. I am 19 and drink recreationally no more than twice a week in healthy and safe amounts. The important thing to understand about many of these activities is that you need a certain level of maturity, discipline, and understanding of what you are putting into your body before engaging in them. Most people who face addiction either lack these qualities or, in some cases, are prone to addiction. This is why there is a somewhat high age limit on these substances. It can be dangerous if you do not handle it responsibly. While I will not judge your character, please keep this in mind if you decide to drink. Alcohol only destroys your life if you allow it to, and you allow it by being irresponsible, not staying hydrated and well-fed when you use it, not pacing yourself, and not researching the kind of alcohol you are consuming and how it affects you. The list goes on. Story 73. I was a bit like that in middle and early high school. That gradually gave way to live and let live as I got older. I started drinking between high school and undergraduate studies. I probably have 1 to 3 drinks per week now and rarely get drunk. I tried a cigarette once, did not like it, and never did it again. I have very occasionally smoked a cigar on special occasions, but did not like those much either. I have never tried cannabis. I may try edibles if it becomes federally legal in my country. Story 74. I said the same thing. I have not compromised on the belief yet at 24. Married, good job, house and child, full shebang. It is only a little hard if you surround yourself with the right people. With the wrong people, I would bet it feels impossible. Story 75. I am 38 now, but even in high school, I knew I never wanted to try a cigarette. I still have not, despite people around me doing so. Story 76. I said the same when I was 13. I found out at 16 that drinking was fun with friends and it never became a problem. Just drink responsibly. Smoking cigarettes, however, ruined everything for me at the time. I was 18 and living under an abusive man who was my mom's boyfriend. Gaming was my main way of relieving stress, but he limited my laptop time so much that I never had enough time to truly unwind. When I tried my first cigarette, the relief I felt from the nicotine was so strong that I became addicted to chasing that high. It started with smoking at parties, then with friends, and eventually I smoked on my own and became a chain smoker. It took me 9 years to finally quit for good, and my lungs feel much better after a bit over a year of no smoking. Story 77. Did not think I was going to, but well, things happen and it has mostly been fun. I have had issues with alcohol in my extended family, but I have kept it to very reasonable levels, like drinking myself a bit drunk 3 or 4 times a year at most. I have tried other things, but nothing that could kill me except maybe a cigarette, and not to an extent where it has made any negative impact on my life. Story 78. To address your question, I never said anything like that. It will not be a huge issue for you if that is something you are committed to. A bit of advice to follow if you are interested. Please do not be judgmental toward people who make different choices. In my experience, the people who take the most criticism for this choice are those who insist on judging or preaching to others. If they are someone you are not close to, who cares if they have made different choices in this area? There is no reason for you to judge them. If they are someone you are close to, then remember, as a friend, you can be honest about problems, but it is not appropriate to try to control their life or choices. As long as they consume in moderation, which can include the occasional binge, especially if they abstain more often than not, you should leave the topic alone. If they are consuming in a way that is materially negatively affecting their life, feel free to speak as a concerned friend. However, their issue can probably be discussed without talking about your choices. Never think that this choice makes you better than anyone else. Best of luck going forward. Story 79. I was in the same situation with drugs and smoking. By the age of 19, I had tried about 4 to 5 different drugs and smoked occasionally. I am 29 now and do not do either. I only occasionally drink, maybe once a month. Do not beat yourself up if you do try one of these things, but definitely avoid making it a habit. They are all extremely dangerous. Story 80. I swore off nicotine at least. I had my first experience at 33 3 years ago, and it is very enjoyable. I understand the appeal now. I only smoke a handful of cigars per year, so there is a minimal chance of addiction. Story 81. I am almost 33. I never said that I never wanted to drink at any point in my life. Regarding smoking and drugs, I said I would never smoke or use drugs at one point in my life, but that was before I was 16. That promise to myself was broken. Weed is the only drug I have taken, and I do not see that changing. Story 82. I always said I would not smoke or do drugs, and at 26 I still have not. I do drink occasionally, but I never made the promise that I would not. Story 83. I was probably around your age or younger when I promised myself not to smoke or drink, as I didn't want to continue my family's cycle of smoking addiction and alcoholism. It wasn't until I was 17 that I asked for wine for my 18th birthday, since it is legal here, and I tried it. I didn't mind it, and a few months later I got drunk for the first time playing Yakuza 0. It was a blast. I have a beer every now and then. I try to be responsible with it, acknowledging the risks of becoming an alcoholic. I am good at telling myself no and drinking responsibly, so I don't have any concerns. As for smoking, I use herbal smoke maybe once every 2 months, but even that is pushing it. I use it for anxiety. It is bad for me, but I make sure I do it infrequently to reduce the risks of it becoming a serious problem. I don't endorse smoking, but I don't see anything wrong with alcohol as long as it is consumed responsibly and not on a weekly basis. If you want to completely avoid these things, kudos to you. That is not a bad decision and is clearly the healthiest option. Story 84. Never smoked or used drugs. Seeing family members addicted to both deterred me. Drank a lot before but have stopped for now as I get back into shape. Story 85. I kinda said the same thing for myself and I live up to it. All through college, I never smoked cannabis except for one time, and I did drink, but only in moderation as a college student. It wasn't until I actually tried it in a safe environment with trustworthy people that I enjoyed it, and now I use cannabis regularly. However, I have found that it does not define my life in any way. It is just a hobby, not something that interferes with my real life, such as work or relationships. I believe moderation is a very mature and important skill to have. Story 86. This was pretty much me at 16, but I have mostly become a social drinker, smoker, and occasional drug user, with the latter two being very rare. Other than this, I simply do not care for any of that, but I am sure others have more addictive personalities. Story 87. I drink alcohol socially and get buzzed from it. I have never smoked anything or used any drugs. Even now, I figure I have gone this long without trying, so why bother now? Story 88. Yeah, I drink and occasionally use drugs now. I finally quit smoking some time ago. Yes, at 16, you should definitely stay away from all that. I would say avoid smoking cigarettes altogether and stay away from other substances until you are out of school and have your life together. There is a reason drugs and alcohol, which is a drug, have been part of most human cultures for ages. Simply because excess is dangerous does not automatically mean abstinence is ideal. Story 89. I am 35 and I never made that kind of promise to myself, so kudos to you for doing that at least. I did say I would not touch alcohol until I was properly 21, and I stuck with that. I enjoyed drinking, but I saw what it did to my father, and I guess you could say it scared me straight. I did not want to go out that way. I never had any personal issues with marijuana, and I always thought cigarettes and chewing tobacco were absolutely gross. Story 90. First, it depends on whether you mean regular use or occasional use. I have drunk alcohol and have been drunk, but I have had 0 accidents. I very rarely drink. I swore never to smoke, but I smoked a little bit of marijuana once. It was nice, but I stopped because there were no occasions to do so. I swore never to touch drugs. I tried cocaine once. It is absolutely terrible. If people around you have been ruined by addiction, they may try to pull you into their addiction if you ever try it. Therefore, I suggest you remain steadfast in your oath until you have people around you who can use substances in moderation and in a safe way. Story 91. Not a gentleman. A woman, and I said that at 16 and I did it. I am 27 now. I have never smoked, never taken any drugs, barely drink, and never been drunk. Story 92. I am 34 years old, have never smoked or used drugs. I drank alcohol casually and never had a problem. I still have the occasional drink with dinner, maybe once or twice a month, but I have not been drunk in probably over 12 years. There is no particular reason. I just do not enjoy losing control or being unable to drive or leave wherever I am at a moment's notice. I never cared about what other people were into, and I certainly did not want to participate just to fit in. I was not the cool kid growing up, so I had the motivation and access to those things but never had the desire. It is that simple. Story 93. I'm 25 years old and have never used them, and I still do not regret it. You will find that many people take them to avoid the realities of life. Not having a crutch makes you stronger and allows you to deal with problems more clearly. Story 94. I'm in my mid-30s now and felt the same when I was your age. Since then, I waited to have my first drink at 21 and only really drink moderately with trusted friends over dinner every month or so. I have never done drugs. I only have celebratory cigars when someone gets married or we climb a mountain. I'll add to your list because I never wanted to curse. I've kept that up pretty well and saved myself for marriage in my early 20s. Hold out firstly until you are of legal age, and then exercise extreme caution until you are an adult with a fully formed brain. You will see many of your peers struggle with vices, and as an adult, you can decide if these things would benefit your life. If you try something at that point or along the way, be safe, give yourself grace, and if needed, set those things aside again. I have gotten past the point where these habits are ingrained in me, and I have control to be moderate. Among my coworkers, I am a rarity, but I am friends with many good men who made and honored similar commitments. It is totally doable and will set you apart from your peers. You will learn that being a man is largely about being true to yourself and not caring about what other people think of your good choices. If anyone gives you grief about a lack of vices in your life, feel free to ignore them. Best of luck. Story 95. It's been pretty easy for me. I am 41 now and have never had an interest in smoking, drinking, or drugs. I have enough sources of highs from other things like food, retail therapy, talking to women, learning new skills, and so on. I have started to drink alcohol a little bit in social settings, but I still don't see the appeal in it. So far, I know that I hate beer because the smell is repulsive, hard liquor is too strong, and wine is too powerful for me. I guess I am a lightweight. I have only been able to tolerate fruity drinks with a little bit of vodka in them. Story 96. I decided that I will not drink or smoke until I finish my graduation. I am very proud that I stuck to that and had no problems while completing my engineering. Story 97. There was not really an issue. I realized that it is meant to be experienced, and limiting yourself from certain activities based on vague principles, as opposed to more realistic reasons, was silly. That said, I only tried cannabis and hallucinogens. I stayed away from nicotine due to its addictive qualities, and I only drink on special occasions. I limited my use of these substances for realistic reasons, such as having a job, goals, and people who count on me. In short, keep yourself goal-oriented, stay focused on what you want to accomplish, and think about whether things help or hurt your goals. Story 98. As a child, I never specifically made any promises to myself but always felt like I would not end up trying drugs. That changed when I went to college. I experimented a lot during that time and had some really fantastic experiences. Fortunately, I rarely had a bad time. At no point did I feel like I was in danger of becoming a habitual user of anything except marijuana, something I quit using about 18 months ago after almost 10 years of nearly daily use. I did not find quitting that difficult, to be honest. However, I avoided trying crack cocaine, methamphetamine, and heroin. I have never encouraged anyone to try substances they are not comfortable or willing to use, and have always surrounded myself with good people who felt the same way. My advice to anyone considering drug use is to only try something new in a safe environment with people you trust. When used correctly, certain substances can have therapeutic benefits. From my personal perspective, life is short, and I want to experience what I can while I can. I am glad I did. That period of my life naturally ran its course, and I came out the other side without any related problems. It is perfectly understandable if someone does not want to take that risk. Story 99. I have tried smoking and drinking a couple of times, but never liked them, so I did not continue. I have never had any interest in taking drugs, so I did not. I guess seeing some family members being destructive after drinking has something to do with my decision to stay away from any kind of substances that affect my body mentally and physically. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.